Hello and welcome to this video, which is part of a series based on content from the new chess book Chess for Life, written by me, GM Matthew Sadler, and Women's International Master Natasha Reagan for Gambit. One of the chapters in the book is all about Capablanca, well, in the book I explain why that is. At some stage I spent an awful lot of time analysing Capablanca's games because I was really looking for inspiration at the time to play in a nice, normal, flowing, natural manner, without spending too much time on the clock calculating all sorts of weird plans and strange variations. What I realised though, whilst I was studying Capablanca's games, was that, well, there are a lot of those smooth, lovely games, but that wasn't the whole picture. He was also capable of playing pretty ugly at times when he felt the position needed it. And I just wanted to give you a couple of examples from this. Two of them actually against the same player, very strong Hungarian player, Geza Moroczy. It's just, it just shows that the top players, they just don't play in one style. They can do pretty much anything, really. So this was Capablanca's game against Moroczy from Carlsbad, 1929. This is round 21. My goodness, those tournaments in the old days, they were long. And this is the position. It's from a Queen's Gambit declined. Moroccy's queen went out to a5, and then the knight came around to c4, and the queen went back to d8. In this position, Moroczy took on d4. The idea was simply that if white recaptures on d4 with a pawn, either pawn in actual fact, then well, at least the d file's been blocked, and the queen's going to be a bit safer on d8, and then black can continue with his queenside development and with b5. What Capablanca did, and that was a real "ooh, good lord" moment when I saw it, was he played the very active rook takes d4, accepting an isolated pawn on c3, but obviously keeping the dynamic factors in the position. I mean, that rook now is opposite the queen. It's restricting the knight on d7, and that rook on d4 is supporting a knight on d6, or even a move like knight e5, putting pressure on the knight on d7. Like I said, it was something that I just was not expecting from a player like Capablanca. And it was interesting to see how the game proceeded, because it got him actually a pretty quick win. Moroczy here played bishop c5, which I think was probably a step in the wrong direction. I spent quite a lot of time analysing this position, and I came up in the end with what I thought was probably the best move, and that was bishop f6. There are other moves, but I like this one the most. The idea is that after rook d2, I'm just going to play the very brave b5. And now, if white plays knight d6, my idea was to play queen a5. Very active idea, sacrifices a piece. Although I think, I don't think white players are going to be too keen to actually grab that piece, because rook takes c3, queen d2, rook fc8 is very strong, and I had all sorts of other ideas as well, like queen b4, or if you just can't wait to get back your material, then rook takes e3, f takes e3, bishop c3 is also a possibility, though probably not the strongest. I thought probably after queen a5, well, black stacking c3, so I thought that probably knight e4 was the very best here. And now probably, just a pretty easy move for black is just to play rook d8 followed by bishop b7. I got a little bit carried away looking at bishop b7, but that didn't really seem to do the business for me. I mean, these lines are lovely, but well, once you've given all your checks, then white's just safe, and he's got the two bishops, and he's just going to win very easily. But I think rook d8 is completely fine. I think actually another decent idea was maybe to just play b5 in this position straight away, and the idea is that if you go knight e5, then you'll just go bishop c5 and then queen e7 later. That's also possible. but I think that bishop f6 was probably the best line. Maroczy went bishop c5, and he went Capablanca went rook d2, and Maroczy, he went queen e7. He didn't really dare to go b5. He was a bit worried, I think, about knight d6 or even queen e4. So he went queen e7, and well, Capablanca developed his pieces very nicely. Maroczy was a little bit tentative, didn't want to give himself any weaknesses on the queen side, but well, in the end, what happened was that he just couldn't get rid of that knight on d6, and well, after these moves, it was pretty clear that that things were getting a little bit tricky for him, and after e5, bishop h4, it got even worse. I mean, stuff like knight e4 is being threatened, or bishop f6 first. It really is quite a difficult position for black. But that all came about from that very, sort of un-Capablanca decision to just accept weak pawns and play on dynamic factors and go rook takes d4. I mean, in actual fact, once you start to see quite a few of Capablanca's games, especially games when he was young, you realise that he was actually a very, very active player, and it was he was always looking for a chance to play actively and to get his pieces at the opponent's king. So that was quite an interesting one. The next example was is absolutely superb. I mean, it's I demonstrated in the book Chess for Life for a different theme, but you also see a very nice example of Capablanca being willing to accept weaknesses in his pawn structure when he thinks it's the right course. Here, Maroczy played the move bishop takes f6. He's looking to get this position with a knight against the bishop, which is quite a typical thing. It's not brilliant for white, but it's not bad either. But here, Capablanca took a very impressive decision. He took with a pawn on f6. And what's the reason for this? Well, first of all, obviously he's going to drive back the knight on e5. But what he was also seeing was that White's actually got a few little problems along the g-file, because he's played this move h2 to h3. And that means that if black doubles up on the g-file, and he also gets something like a bishop on d6, for example, well, g2 to g3 is not so fantastic, because the presence of the pawn on h3 weakens the support of the pawn on g3. You could imagine black coming with f5 to f4 or h5 to h4, and well, just opening up the white king side. In the course of the game, sort of shows this theme very, very nicely, really. White felt that he needed to play f4, so that also weakens the square on g3 further, which has already been weakened by h3. And then, well, this is the moment that I demonstrated in the book Chess for Life. It was part of the theme, exchanging bishops for knights. But if we just look at how things went, I mean, yeah, this pawn on g3 is an enormous target for the black rooks, and well, Capablanca sacked on g3 a few moves later, and eventually brought the game to a winning conclusion. So this theme of Capablanca being willing to accept pawn weaknesses for specific reasons, dynamic reasons in actual fact, well, you start to see it a bit of everywhere, and as soon as you start thinking about a theme, you notice it in all sorts of things. There's another game that I quote in the book Chess for Life, and again for a different reason. But there's one little moment in the game where you also see Capablanca being willing to accept just pawn weaknesses, just to keep his activity going. And this is this very famous game against Andor Lilienthal, enormously strong Hungarian player. And well, this is the position after White's just played b4 and Black plays a takes b4, and just after thinking of that theme of split pawns, I suddenly realised that in this position, Capablanca had played queen takes b4. So he was completely willing. I mean, if Black just moves his queen back to c7 or to a7, then Capablanca's had to accept an isolated pawn on a3. On the other hand, he's gained a little bit of time, and he's also got this half-open b-file to attack the pawn on b7. But it just suddenly occurred to me that, my goodness, Capablanca was willing to accept a weak pawn on a3 just to make sure that he got maximum activity. Now, in the game, Lilienthal took the queen on b4, so Capablanca repaired his pawn structure, and as I demonstrate in the book later, he won a classic game with some absolutely beautiful positional play. It's part of the theme, placing a rook on an outpost and not a knight. So just a little bit mysterious there. You'll have to buy the book in order to see it. It's a wonderful game. But here once again, just for our theme, we see this idea of Capablanca not being afraid to take on a pawn weakness if he felt that it was justified by the dynamics of the position. And well, that was a little bit of a revelation for me. It made me understand just how many sides there are to how many facets there are to Capablanca's play, not just the the beautiful, smooth, even player that we have in our minds when we think of him.